So Frank, maybe we can talk about bugs in Singapore and your curiosity about them.
Well, curiosity is, again, something that everybody is born with. But somehow curiosity gets extinguished either by parents or school teachers because kids ask too many why questions, and I was no exception to that. And again, it goes back to Gene Stead, who was a role model to me in terms of his insatiable curiosity about everything. And he did two things. He had a broad curiosity, and then he had what I would call focused curiosity. And I began to think about how one could reignite childish curiosity in our students. Some of them have it, but most of them don't. And I say reignite because we're all born with curiosity. If we didn't have it, we'd never learn language. And we'd never learn to stand up and walk and do all sorts of things. So photography seemed like to me to be an interesting way to convey the concept of curiosity and focusing curiosity. That it gave me the opportunity to see things that everybody else sees, but yet didn't realize what it was they were seeing. And in particular, insects, small insects, are all over Singapore. Most people never see them because they're too busy walking and avoiding people and whatnot. So I developed kind of rounds. There's a place, I live in Queenstown, and there's a place near Queensway Secondary School that is a tree, little forested area. And I go there every Saturday morning that I'm in town. So that's maybe 45 Saturdays out of 52. And I take photographs of whatever's there. Now, the remarkable thing is, I was able to focus my curiosity without realizing that's what I was doing, because if you go by repetitively week after week, you begin to see patterns. You begin to see patterns, expected patterns that didn't happen. And it helped me develop some ideas about pattern recognition, looking for disruption of the pattern, and then using that as keys to what to photograph and what not to photograph. And then simply put them in our walls, because as you well know, when we moved up here, we had a building of white walls. And to me, it was sort of antiseptically clean, and it needed to be colorized. So I just printed pictures, put them on the wall, and showed what's going on. But let me give you a couple of examples of sort of focusing curiosity. So the first picture is one of a common spider here in Singapore called Nephila pilipa. And it's a big female. She's maybe 5 or 6 centimeters long, but the whole size of the spider is maybe 15, 20 centimeters. The male, on the other hand, is only about 5 centimeters, about 2 centimeters long. Now, if you look at her web in the picture behind us, you'll see these little dots. And if you're curious, you'll say, well, what are those little dots? Because they weren't there the week before. If you get up very closely, you see that they're little orange spiders. And so the next picture really shows one of these little orange spiders. This is a spider called Argyrodes it's from the family Argyrodes. And the body is so highly polished that you can see a reflection of the sky in it. So to me, it was a photographic challenge. Can you get enough depth of field that you can actually see the reflection of the sky and the clouds on this spider? But this spider is very interesting. It's a kleptoparasite. And this spider invades the Nephila web and then steals prey. And if there's no prey, steals silk and consumes the silk. So if you look at the next picture, here is a little ball of silk in front of the Argyrodes that she's rolled up, and then she'll eat it. It's pure protein, and will then you do whatever she does with the silk. But it was an interesting arrangement between this huge spider who leaves these little guys alone, and these kleptoparasites who are not there when the spider web, when the spider sort of grows and evolves into a fully mature web, but shows up a week later, and then they peacefully coexist with each other, and they make great exercises for improving your photographic skill. Now, in the next picture, this is sort of about physics. So this is a picture in Chennai near the Park Sheraton Hotel. There's a guy who runs a tea stall across from that. And here he's cooling the tea, and if you notice the stream, it's laminar flow at the top, but by the time the stream gets to the cup, it's changed to droplets. And so it's interesting to think about, okay, how do you switch from laminar flow to droplet flow? What are the forces involved which cause the droplets to be formed? And can you explain it? Now, the next picture is probably the most interesting one I've taken. This was taken in January about 2 years ago, and you see the halo over the sun. The angle with respect to the camera is 22.5 degrees. And I saw that, and I was curious what that was, so I did a Google search and found that there's a phenomenon called sundogs. And there's a physicist at the either Georgia Tech or Georgia State University who characterizes these things. And so I sent a picture off to him, and I said, is this what you call a sundog? And he says, yes. He says, and I've got a description of how it's made. And what's happened is in the atmosphere, ice particles descend, and they are structured in a way that they descend more or less in a homogeneous planar way. The light from the sun hits these pieces of planar ice and is refracted at this 22.5 degree angle, which creates this rainbow. So he said, where did you take the picture? And I said, I'm 1 degree off the equator. He said, oh my, I just lost a bet. He said, I predicted you would never see this at the equator. So here's an example of a combination of Google, the internet, a curious physicist in Georgia, a curious Frank at Duke-NUS, coming together to create a new insight into looking at atmospheric optical effects at the equator. So to me, it's a fun way to just look around. With a camera, you can capture it so you can always go back and review it, and you can ship it off to other people to help you understand what's going on.
So the world has really changed, right, from the time you started.
Yes.
A lot of things that we would have had to go to a library, call up people, and often can't find what we want when we want it. Now, if we know how to do it, it's right at our fingertips. So you and the team when Duke-NUS started thought about how to pull this all together to help our students learn.
Right.
And Sandy Cook, Bob Kamei, yourself played a big role in setting up a system of learning where we took advantage of a lot of tools, a lot of material, a lot of content, both from Duke and elsewhere, and then utilized it to build a new system of learning. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how you built, how your thought process along with the rest of the members of the group that led to the Learning Flow Manager and other tools.
Okay. Well, first of all, it goes back to Gene Stead again. One of his favorite questions was to ask people who the most important person in the medical center is. Everybody would always say either the dean or Stead or Sabiston or Jim Weingarten, and he'd always fail them. He said, you take all those people away from medical school, you still got a medical school. You take the students out of the medical school, there's no medical school. Students are the most important people in the school. So everything we do has to be focused on facilitating learning by the students. So when I came, the thing that was exciting about coming to Singapore is we were able to start things from nothing and basically build it according to our dreams. And I wanted to build a network infrastructure that was fundamentally enabling. And by that I mean none of the typical IT obstacles that get in the way of students chasing their curiosity. We would try to make those disappear. So one of the first things I did was say our infrastructure was going to be open source. So I did that so that we could respond quickly to changes in technology and adapt to what Bob and Sandy and I were exploring with with team-based learning. The second thing was Duke had required medical students to have a standard configured laptop computer. And since our students have already got a university degree, I felt like they'd already developed their own learning flow. Why should we kind of arrogantly go in and break it and say, you have to learn our way? So I said, we'll let you use any laptop you want, and we'll run Laptop Clinic 2 weeks before school starts just to make sure you can connect to the internet. But we developed all our learning materials so that they really were platform independent. That turned out to be a huge plus for us. Now, when Bob and Sandy and I first started exploring the way we were going to set up the learning program, we were faced with a number of obstacles. The first one was kind of a ridiculously funny obstacle. We're 12 time zones away from Duke, literally half a world. Takes light 20 microseconds, 60 milliseconds to go from Durham to Singapore. The round trip time is 120 milliseconds. If you put network switches, network routers, etc., it turns out to be a quarter of a second. So every time you do a transaction with Duke, it's going to cost you a quarter second in overhead. That makes things respond very slowly. So the original strategy was that our students would stream the lectures from Duke, but we didn't think that would really be feasible. So we took the lectures from Duke, put them on a USB drive, and then gave the students sort of this textbook of medicine. They all carry around a USB drive with the fall lectures on it, with the spring lectures, and initially they were the video lectures. But we replaced those with voice annotated presentations that were the video lectures segmented by slide because they were all PowerPoint presentations. And this gave the students the ability to either look at it from beginning to end, or to jump around and skip the ones they didn't want to skip, or to bookmark the slides they wanted to come back and review later for study. Now, one of the early issues we had was Bob had some Fulbright experience in Indonesia. I had taught for a year as a visiting professor at IIT in Madras, and we both knew about the way Asians respect authority. And we thought our biggest challenge in our learning strategy would be, how do you teach our students to respectfully challenge authority? And this was a culture change not only for our students, but more so for the faculty who sort of grew up in a different kind of medical tradition. So we thought a team approach to learning would let the students learn to respectfully challenge their peers. And then as they develop their skills, they would become more comfortable with challenging their seniors. And I think it's worked. I think it's worked beyond our greatest expectation. But looking at the way that Sandy and Bob have put together Team Lead, which is our variation of team-based learning, I wanted to create a desktop that, again, was enabling. It was internet-centric, so that the students had the power of Google, the power of the internet, to basically harvest resources from the internet, link them to what they were currently studying, and then make them really easily get-outable. So we had the combination of our voice annotated presentations, being able to harvest stuff from the internet, upload stuff from your desktop to create what we call our Learning Flow Manager, which we think is the next generation of the way anybody's going to learn, not only learn, but problem solving. Because at the end of the day, every time we approach a problem, it's a learning exercise. And what we really want to do with our students is not so much emphasize the learning as to emphasize the problem solving. The application component of Team Lead really is the problem solving component that brings all of this stuff together. And it's really been fun.
So how's the adventure been so far?
I'm still here 8 years later.
Okay. And we hope you'll stay for a much longer time here in Singapore.
We really enjoy it. Yes.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.